welcome to lesson 2 in our beginner jazz piano series. My name is Tobey from Jazzmentl.com. Thanks so much for joining me. In our first lesson, we introduced you to 7th chords, which is arguably the basis for all jazz harmony, chords, and progressions. And in this video, we're going to do several things. First, we're going to take a look at dominant 7th chords because that's the predominant chord that you would use to play the blues. It's very exciting because we're going to dive in and start playing right away. It shouldn't all be just about harmony. So we're going to take a look at the blues, a basic 12-bar blues. And as part of playing the blues as a jazz player, it's important to learn your first 2-5-1 progression. 2-5-1s, you probably heard that before. It's literally the most important progression in jazz. And then I'm going to introduce you to the basic swing rhythm that you can play over top of the blues. We're going to use our shell voicings to play that swing rhythm. And then we're going to do an exercise playing what we've learned over top of a bass and drums backing track that I've made just for you. And we're going to play the basic rhythm with our shell voicings over top of that backing track. How very exciting to just dive in and get playing right away. So by the time you get done this video, you'll not only know exactly what to do to play the blues using all of the rhythms and shell voicings, but you'll also get your first introduction in playing with a rhythm section. All right, let's dive in and get going with step 1, introducing you to dominant 7th chords. Now, we did talk about them in the first video. I want to spend a bit more time on them because they probably are the most important chord in all of jazz. The reason for that is they need to be resolved. They need to go somewhere. You can't stay on a dominant 7th chord for very long until you need to go somewhere else. Now, the blues is a little bit different because it's predominantly dominant 7th chords, and we'll get there in a second. But let's just talk about the chord itself. What is a dominant 7th chord? Well, just like in the last video, in the key of C, when we're going up the scale, it's the 5th note of the scale. And if you did tertian harmony, thirds on top of that, you'd get a G triad. We've all been familiar with that, especially from our classical music. And then if you go another third, you get your dominant 7th chord, which is G7. So a G7 chord is made up of a major triad and a flat 7, or what Chordy calls a minor 7th chord. So that's really important. Let's write that out. So we've got a G triad, and then on top of that, the distance between this note and the root is a flat 7, making it a G7 chord. Now, if it were a major 7th chord, it would be this, which has a major 7th on top. Okay, so you'll always have to measure the chord from the root. Whatever that top note is in that 4-note chord, that's going to determine the first symbol of our chord symbol. So for example, I said a G major 7th is this with an F sharp. That would be written like this, G major 7th. So the first symbol we have is the 7, and you have to notate that number. Now, the other thing I think is important to note is that this is a 5-7 of 1. So if 1 is C, this is a 5-7 chord, meaning 5th note of the scale needs to be resolved. Where does it need to go? All right, one more thing that's super important. You need to understand that this chord contains an interval here called a tritone. It's sometimes called a flat 5. But if it's part of a dominant 7th chord, it is called a tritone. Now, the interesting thing about a tritone, it is a very dissonant chord. That interval doesn't want to stick around forever. It needs to go somewhere, so it typically goes to here. So some kind of tension, then resolve. Okay, that's our dominant 7th chord. Let's move on and introduce you to the blues, where we're going to use predominantly dominant 7th chords. Okay, let's introduce you to the blues. Now, I've written this out. I've called it beginner blues. I think it's pretty aptly named because it's a very basic chord structure for a jazz player who's learning to play the blues. Now, it's not a straight ahead blues like a blues player would play, and that's because jazz is a little bit different. But it is 12 bars like any other blues, and it contains a 1/7 chord on the first measure, a 4/7 chord, because we're in the key of F, right? So the fourth note of the scale is B flat. So there's a 4/7 chord on bar 2, and then it goes back to 1/7. Now you'll notice there's no chord symbol for this bar. That's because the chord symbol that's in this bar carries through until you see a new chord symbol. In this case, the new chord symbol is on bar 5, which is a B flat 7 chord. Of course, again, it's a 4/7 chord, and then back to 1/7 for bars 6 and 7. And then the last 4 bars is our first 2-5-1 progression. We've got 2 minor 7 to 5/7 to 1/7. Okay, so that's our basic blues. Now you're probably wondering, what are these little slashes things? The answer is it's called slash notation. It means play something in this bar that represents an F7 chord. Play something in this bar that represents a B flat 7 chord. Play something in this bar that represents an F7 chord, whether that's comping or soloing. It's called slash notation. You'll see it very often in jazz, and it's just a way to give suggestions to the player that you have to play something in this bar, work it out. We're gonna give you chord symbols, but the rest is up to you. And that's really the whole point of jazz. It's an improvised music. Now that we know what a basic blues progression is for jazz players, let's take a look at the chord voicings that we're gonna play. What is a voicing? A voicing is notes that you play with your fingers in some kind of order that sounds good. So what we're gonna do is talk about shell voicings. What is a shell voicing? It's basically taking the notes from the chord and playing them in some kind of order. So we're not playing any upper structure notes like 9ths, 11ths, or 13ths. We'll get there in upcoming videos, but for now, let's just do a basic shell voicing for F7. We're doing the blues, so F7 in the left hand would be playing 1 and the flat 7, this. What Chordy calls a minor 7th. It's also known as an F with a flat 7 on top. Okay, so we've got the root, we've got our flat 7. In the right hand, what we're gonna do is play the 3rd and the root surrounding the voicing. So we've got roots on the outside, and in the middle, we've got our tritone. Cool, right? So there's our first dominant 7th chord. That's called a shell voicing. Now, eventually what's going to happen is you're gonna be playing voicings like this, which is an F7 with a 9 and a 13. Where did that all come from? Well, that's what we're gonna be doing in upcoming videos. But for now, the basic shell voicing for F7 is this. So then let's move on to the next chord, which is B flat 7. So we've got the root, the flat 7 in the left hand, then the 3rd. And just like our F7 chord, we've got the B flat on top, which is the root. That's our basic shell voicing for B flat 7. Then it goes back to F7. Then it goes back to B flat 7. Then we get to our first 2-5-1 progression. I hope you're enjoying the video so far and getting some great tips. If you're looking to subscribe to the entire Jazz Piano Beginner series, you can find that on our website at jazzmentl.com. I've posted a link to the entire course down in the description below. All you have to do is click that link and go and sign up. It's absolutely free to do so, and we'll send you all of the videos and the sheet music and everything that you need to start your journey to become a great jazz pianist. If you're wondering what else is in this course, we talk about chord progressions and scales and soloing, comping. I mean, pretty much the entire range of skills that you'll need on your journey to becoming a great jazz pianist. I highly recommend that you subscribe to that series. There really isn't anything else like it out there, and we really work hard to put things in the right order so that you're not skipping a whole bunch of steps. You're getting the absolute fundamentals that you need. So go ahead and find that URL below in the description, and I will see you over at jazzmentl.com for the Jazz Piano Beginner series. Now, this is really what I wanted to introduce to you in this video. 2-5-1 essentially means going from the second note of the scale to the 5th note to 1. It needs to be resolved in that order. And if in the key of F, you're talking about a G, in the scale, you get this scale. It's called a Dorian scale. We'll get there later, but for now, what's important is you can see that if we build in thirds on G, you've got a minor third, which is the B flat. That's part of the key. Then another third. So you've got a G minor chord with a minor seventh on the outside, part of the scale, which is the F. So there's our G minor chord. Okay, very important. Now, the interesting thing about that is the seventh typically falls to become the third of the next chord. 7 falls to 3, which is now our tritone for C7, right? If you put a C in the bass, you've got a C7 chord. So you've got G minor here to C7, and then to 1. Make sense? Okay. So the shell voicing for G minor is the same process as the shell voicing for dominant seventh chords. Play the root, play the seventh, in this case a flat 7 or a minor 7th, then play the third, then play the root on top. If we actually went up the scale like that, get the idea? That's how to play shell voicings. 1 and 7 in the left hand, 3 and 1 in the right hand. So G minor, and then we're going to go to the shell voicing for C7. Now, typically we would do this, play 1 in flat 7, then 3 in the root. Now you can do that, but look how far you had to jump. You had to jump from here to here, all the way back down to here for the last chord. So what you're going to do instead is another shell voicing of that is an inversion of that chord. So G minor 7th, and then let's play an inversion of C7. We're still going to play 1 and 7 in the left hand here, but we're going to play 3 and 5 instead of jumping up to here. So listen to this. Still C7, we're just including the 5th now, and then down to 1. So those are our basic shell voicings for 12-bar blues. Let's now take a look at rhythm. Okay, just before we go any further, I wanted to let you know that if you give this video a thumbs up, and you just have to hit that little thumbs up button, it really helps the channel. If you want to subscribe, you can hit the little bell and you'll be notified of all the upcoming videos that we're making, including all of the videos to go in this beginner jazz piano series. All right, now let's take a look at the shell voicings played with some kind of rhythm over top of the blues. Now I've notated quarter note equals 140, so that's about here. 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll notice I'm snapping my fingers on 2 and 4, not 1 and 3, because that's swing, right? It's always on 2 and 4. 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You get the idea. So if you take a look at the basic rhythms that I have for swing, you've got an eighth note, 2 eighth note rests, then another eighth note, which is the and of 2. So 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Get the idea? 1, 2, and 3, 4. 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 So if we were playing beginner blues, with that rhythm and our shell voicings, it's like this. 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. I have to scroll down the page here a little bit. Now comes our 2, 5. Pretty cool, right? That's our shell voicings using the basic swing rhythm over top of the blues. Okay, just before we dive in to play with the rhythm section in the backing track that I've made for you, I want to point out one more thing. If you take a look at the sheet music that's here, you'll notice that we've got these really funny things that look like eighth notes but don't really have note heads on them. So it's basically written like this, where you've got an eighth note, 2 rests, another eighth note, and then 2 beats of rest. So what is this? So this is called rhythmic notation. And rhythmic notation means to the player, play those rhythms using those chord symbols. Nobody is ever going to write out shell voicings on a piece of sheet music. They're going to give you rhythms like this, which we call rhythmic notation, and then it's up to you to play the voicings that you've learned. Now, obviously, there are other rhythms that you could play that would be notated here as well, and also different types of voicings for F7, for B flat 7. But I just wanted to introduce that to you because rhythmic notation is an important part of sheet music in jazz. All right, so the last thing we want to do is use the backing track to play our shell voicings and our rhythms along with that bass and drums backing track. We're going to be using a lot of backing tracks in this course because it's important as a jazz player to start playing with a rhythm section, in this case, bass and drums. Now, the piano is part of that rhythm section, but we're not going to put that on the backing track because you're going to play the piano over top of the backing track. So in the backing track, we've got 4 choruses, 4 times 12 bar blues. So that's enough time for you to play your new shell voicings and your rhythms and practice it. And if you want to just repeat that practice, obviously just go back to the beginning. Now there's 2 bar count off. The interesting thing about the 2 bar count off is it's going to be a rim shot on a snare drum, and it's going to be on 1 and then 3 and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So when a conductor typically counts in a band, it's like this: 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4, play. Does that make sense? So you're going to hear the rim shot on 1, 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So one more time, a conductor would go like this: 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's hop over to the grand piano and let's play it. As soon as I get done playing you the exercise on the grand piano, I'm going to post a link to this sheet music and to the backing track. It's absolutely free, so please stick around until after I'm done playing it, and I'll throw up the link up in the corner of this video so you can go and download it. So you probably noticed that I played some soloing in addition to the ideas that we talked about in this tutorial. If you have any questions about that, you can post them in the comments below, but I wanted to give you some example of why you're doing this whole thing. Like, do you want to sound like a great jazz pianist? I think this is a great series to be part of. Try to remember that if you're looking to subscribe to the Beginner Jazz series, just go to the description below and we've posted a link to it on our website. It's absolutely free to subscribe. If you're looking for the sheet music from this tutorial, let me post that now up here in the corner. Just click that link, go and download it. It's free to do so. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. If you're looking for another video in this Jazz Piano Beginner series, I suggest you check out this one.